Hey, newsflash, Utah is not the better program. It's not the better job. BYU has better NIL money. They have a better staff. They have a bigger fan base. He's an alum of BYU. Why would he put Utah on a higher tier? It doesn't make any sense.
Hello and welcome to the Aptive Podcast Studio. This is the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds, alongside Tosh, Mackintosh, where we talk about what you, the fans, are talking about. And this week was a little bit of a down week in terms of news of the week. There's not a whole lot of recruiting going on for football or for basketball. However, Tosh, there was an article. By the way, how was your Mother's Day weekend?
Let's
start with that.
It was good. It was chill. My wife got to celebrate her with my kids, and then also went and saw my mother-in-law, went and saw my mom. It was kind of the prototypical Mother's Day, but it was chill and good. Yeah. How about yourself?
It was great. My mom is actually out of town. My parents have been serving a mission. They've been in New Zealand. They just got back like a week or two ago. And they spent the last week driving to Nauvoo. So I used to live in Gillette, Wyoming. They drove through Wyoming, through Gillette. They actually took a picture of my old house. It used to be pink. It's now brown. So that was kind of weird. They drove through Nebraska into Nauvoo, and they've spent the last few days in Nauvoo. So I FaceTimed my mom. I cleaned our house for my wife. That was the only thing she asked for. And other than that, it was not other than that. It was a good Mother's Day, including that. Those didn't make it a bad Mother's Day. No, it was good. It was a great weekend. Really enjoyed it.
Nice.
So the news of the week, if there was really any news, was this article that came out from Gordon Monson. And the article talked about salaries and head coaching salaries. And I kind of want to take a step back and help fans realize where this article is coming from, because I think a lot of people are putting weight into this article as if it's a report from Gordon Monson. The reality is it's not. It's an article from collegefootballnetwork.com that came out in March of this year. So it came out about a month and a half ago, and it lists all the, ranks the head coaches and their salaries. And there's a note on here that says, while mostly accurate, it should be noted that public schools are required to disclose their figures in some capacity, but private institutions are not. You will likely not see 100% confirmed details of private institutions' coach unless that contract has been made public, which in BYU's case, it never is.
Yeah.
Right. So this should be taken very much with a grain of salt. And I also should point out, the whole point of me saying this is that this is not a Gordon Monson report. This is not a Gordon Monson article. He is citing an article that came out in March from collegefootballnetwork.com. So keep that in mind when you're talking about this article. If this is the first time you're hearing it, this is a collegefootballnetwork.com article. And he lists Kyle Whittingham at $6.2 million. That puts him at, I think, 30. I should have looked this up.
Highest paid state
28
for sure.
Yep, 28. And I think he's third in the conference. So $6.2 million, which, I guess my question to you is, does that feel high or low?
It feels high. The reality is, yes, I understand why they would do that. At the same time, the football landscape is changing around him, and he is not changing. As well as so much of that Utah credibility was how they were matching up against BYU. But he has a losing record against BYU when they're on equal ground. Like, he only was able to really go on a run when they were in a power conference and BYU wasn't. And so now that they're on equal ground again, if you're asking me at this moment, he's overpaid. At the same time, I can't understand why they gave him what they gave him.
I agree. Like, at this point in time, sure, he's probably a little bit overpaid. I don't know if you can say past your prime in terms of coaching. Like, there were some older, like LaVell Edwards was, an older coach, and maybe he passed his prime as well in the late 90s, early 2000s. But I think he has earned what he's making, right? Like, and it's not just record against BYU, because as you pointed out, they had the advantage of being in a P5 conference when BYU didn't. And so, he had the advantage of being able to recruit these guys that BYU just could not get. They literally could not get them. So there's an advantage there. But outside of that, like, he competed pretty decently in the Pac-12. Like, they obviously, they went to 2 Pac-12 championships later in his coaching career, and they competed pretty well against USC most years. Like, they beat Oregon a few times. Like, they've had some good years and some successful seasons. It's funny that their most successful season, I still think they had 2 or 3 losses. Like,
More. They had 4 losses. They won the years that are their magical years. They actually had a lot of luck and tiebreakers go their way. But they lost, they lost to BYU that year. They lost 2 in the conference, and then they obviously lost to Ohio State in the end. So they had 4 losses in their magical season, which, again, I understand it as a fan. They had a chance. They were close in the Rose Bowl, and that feels really good. But I don't see things the same. There was a lot of luck involved in those seasons.
And you say 6.2 is high. I think it's probably around where I would expect it to be. What's wild, though, is if you actually look at the way his contract is structured, he's set to get paid after retirement probably more than he's getting paid this year.
Wow.
Meaning, like, his contract is very structured toward his toward after his career, his retirement, his kids, his descendants or whatever. Like, they're going to be getting paid or benefit more so than he's probably making now.
What's wild to me is the Ute fan just outrage over BYU alums choosing on their own free will to give their own money to the NIL, and that somehow is totally unfair and needs to be stopped. But when it's taxpayer money that they have, that's forced on people, they have no problem on them paying their head coach over $6 million while he's a coach, and have it set up in a way where he could get more than that after. Like, the outrage about people choosing to pay it when they got to look in the mirror and see they are using taxpayer money to boost it. It's a silly stand that they're making.
And then they imply that the church pays for our coaches and players and whatever, and it's just not the case. And they're fine with tax dollars paying for their coach. Okay, let's go to Kalani. According to this article, Kalani is making $3 million. Let's start with whether or not we believe that number, because I don't. I think it's pretty significantly higher. 30 to 40% probably higher than that. But if it is $3 million, is that high or low? Do you believe it, first of all?
I don't know what the number is, but I bet it's higher than $3 million. I don't think that BYU is ever going to report that. And that number's been floated for a while now, and he's had some magical seasons and some extensions. If I'm betting it's over $3 million. And I don't think that he's overpaid. He's on the upswing of his career. The momentum he has BYU in is in a positive place. I don't think BYU needs to make him the highest paid in the Big 12, but I do think his fair market value is probably in the top half of the Big 12 coaches, which would put him a little bit higher than is being reported.
Yeah, he's not there yet. By the way, Coach Prime is the highest paid. I think he's at $10 million.
Yeah.
And then it's Gundy from Mike Gundy from Oklahoma State. And I don't know why Prime's paid so high. Obviously, he's got the hype around him. But Gundy and Whittingham, they've been around long enough. Like, it makes sense. Kalani's not really there yet to the point where he could demand $6 or $7 million. But he's, I think he's on the right path. He's the trajectory's there. I think he made $3 million at one point. He has since had 2 extensions. We know that he's talked to other P5 schools, some, national title contender schools like Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
We know he's talked to those schools. Oregon was he almost went to Oregon. Like, it was pretty close. The other thing too with Kalani, and you and I talked about this kind of before the show, but Kalani, he fights for his guys, meaning he wants his assistants to get paid, towards, the top paid assistants in the conference, more so than he would want himself to be paid towards the top coaches in the conference. I think, he fights for his, like Jay Hill, A-Rod, Festi, like, he's going to fight for those guys to get paid more than he'll fight for himself. That's not to say that he doesn't negotiate for his own contract as well, but I think he's fine making $4.5 million, $4 million. as long as he has assistant coaches that are also making $1 or $2 million.
Yeah, and that's the best place for him and BYU to succeed. You listed several names. The only other one I'd throw out there is even Young, our new offensive line coach last year. Rumor has it he got a huge raise after the season because teams were coming after him. So Kalani is such a player's coach. They love him. He preaches good principles. He genuinely cares and loves his players. At the same time, with him being that style of coach, it's imperative that he has very, very solid assistant coaches, even like head coaches, really, pseudo head coaches under him, and he does right now, especially in Jay Hill. I think that Jay Hill is the best assistant coach, maybe in the nation, at least in our vicinity. And so Kalani's in a great spot right now. Why rock the boat? He's making a lot of money. He's got incredibly capable coaches underneath him. Like, I think that BYU has gotten to a pretty fair place there. From what I'm hearing, the coaches are getting paid.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Bronco Mendenhall, I think $2 million is what the article said.
That's a lot for Utah State.
Sure.
Like they're trying to turn that ship around.
And I think he's taking a discount going there. I think he made more at BYU. Maybe not a lot more at BYU, but I think he made probably about that much, maybe a little more at New Mexico. But
after what he showed he could do at Virginia,
yeah,
I fully agree. He could find a program that's bottom of a power conference that would pay him a lot of money to turn that around.
But we know why Bronco's going to Cache Valley, right? Like it's his it's his what he likes to do. He wants to live on a ranch. He wants to have horses, and who freaking knows what
and
else
I think he
do.
likes the small team press more than he likes big team press, as well as BYU fans know better than anybody. He really likes mixing gospel principles with his coaching, and he can do that in a school of Utah better than he can somewhere else.
All right, so with all that said, we're going to introduce kind of a new segment here, and we're going to call it the Shut the F Up. Shut the F Up! Post of the week. Alex Markham said, "The real challenge for BYU will be now, with it known Scalley is Witt's successor, Kalani will at least be slightly more open to schools." And he's kind of referencing this report that came out, but I think it's not really related. First of all, the idea that Kalani was waiting on Scalley to be named head coach in waiting, which, by the way, everyone knew Scalley was going to be the head coach even before it was officially announced that he was going to be head coach in waiting, for 5 years, maybe more. Like Scalley was the head coach in waiting at Utah for a long time. And so this idea that like, oh, now Sitake is going to be slightly more open to schools, that because in the last year or two, Scalley's been officially named head coach in waiting, to me is pretty absurd.
For sure. There's multiple things wrong with this thing. One, everyone's known Scalley's the coach in waiting, like you said, for a while. Number two is, hey, newsflash, Utah is not the better program. It's not the better job. Like, he's living in the past, and they're clinging to that with everything they can. But BYU has better NIL money. BYU right now is getting the better recruits. They have a better staff. They have a bigger fan base. He's an alum of BYU. Why would he put Utah on a higher tier? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and we don't even have to like hypothesize. Like the fact is, Kalani, as we said, he entertained Oregon. He's entertained other P5 schools. Like Tom Homo has even confirmed on BYU Sports Nation, like, yeah, we've had to retain, like Kalani's been suited and courted by other schools, and he's turned them down. We've had to basically get in a bidding war or whatever. Like, we've had to convince him to come back. Like, it hasn't been easy to keep him around. And so like this idea that Sitake, by the way, I don't know if Kalani even really has any like devotion to Utah. I know he's coached there, but he coached under Whittingham. Like, Whittingham leaves. Would Kalani even want that job other than it's still kind of close to home?
I don't know. The thing that I'll say about Kalani, I've been around him several times, one just a few months ago. He will never say a bad thing about Utah. But guess what? He won't say a bad thing about anybody, school, right, or any person.
Yeah.
Like, it is his superpower. He is so committed, where I've been in settings where people are really just trying to, that had to feel good to stick it to Utah and beat them and he will not entertain that. He'll say, it's good. It's never good for the soul to talk bad about anybody. And so I love those guys, but I'm really excited about and so he is such a saint in that regard. It's funny when you juxtapose that against how Utah talks about BYU.
Especially Whittingham.
Correct.
Whittingham won't even say BYU, and he played here.
Correct. And so, but at the same time, it's an interesting thing. But that Kalani's competitive as heck, and it does just make me smile that he's able to have the dignity and self-control that he does in talking about any school, but that he's gotten the wins the last 2 times.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say Kalani doesn't like Utah, which is why he wouldn't go. But the point is, his ties were to Whittingham and to maybe Chris Hill when he was at Utah. Probably not. I don't think anyone really liked Chris Hill. But his ties are not to Mark Harlan. They're not to Morgan Scalley. And Scalley, if Kalani's the head coach, it wouldn't be Scalley. But either way, I don't think even though he coached at Utah, there's not a
deep-rooted connections he still has there.
He's not devoted to Utah, right? He played at BYU. He played for Lavelle. He's obviously said this is his dream job. That's not to say he's not going to leave at some point, and maybe he will. But it doesn't. I don't think Utah was what he was waiting for.
No.
If Oregon came in, or if a Notre Dame or Alabama came in and they're like, hey, we want to pay you $12 million, Kalani's not going to say no to that. But he's not gonna wait for a Utah job to open up to go to Utah. It's absurd.
Fully agree.
This episode is brought to you by Aptiv. Aptiv believes that every home should be enjoyed. They tailor their pest control treatment plans to target pests when and where they're most active. Plus, if you see pest activity between treatments, Aptiv will return to take care of the problem at no additional cost. It's their way of making sure every customer is satisfied and every pest is controlled. If pests stay away, Aptiv is why. Visit AptivPestControl.com/Loyal Cougars or call 844-966-4787. Mention this promotion to get your initial treatment for just $29. That's AptivPestControl.com/Loyal Cougars or call 844-966-4787. Terms and conditions apply. Get home field advantage with Aptiv. Looking to get your brand in front of BYU's most engaged fans? The Loyal Cougars Podcast and Cougar Board are your perfect match. Cougar Board is the largest online community of BYU fans with thousands of posts every day. The Loyal Cougars Podcast is the official podcast of Cougar Board, and we have sponsorship opportunities available for both the podcast and the site. Contact us at sponsorships@loyalcougars.com, and we'll help your message hit home with the Cougar faithful. Again, that's sponsorships@loyalcougars.com. All right, so next segment we have is kind of based on a post that came out last week, and it's kind of funny how viral it went. This is from an account that had, I think, 2,000 followers, which not a lot, not a ton. It's not nothing to scoff at, but it was a post that lists the top 100 most electric college football players of all time. And atop of that list, do you remember? Did you see this post?
No.
The top of the list is Barry Sanders.
Okay, that makes sense.
Who would you put at the top of the list of all-time college football players?
Well,
I'm putting you on the spot.
Michael Vick or Barry Sanders. I think it's between those two guys.
Yeah. So this kind of caused some outrage, and I don't know if he's rage baiting or whatever, but Barry Sanders
Reggie
number 1.
Bush too.
Reggie Bush is up there. Number 2 is Johnny Manziel.
No.
Number 3 is Tavon Austin.
Yeah.
So then he has Reggie Bush, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow, Saquon Barkley, Bo Jackson's 8. Some other notable players. He's got Michael Vick at 21. Seems incredibly low.
Yeah.
And then this was probably the best part was Shedeur Sanders was at 31.
Yeah.
He shouldn't even be on the list.
Yeah.
Scattaboo was on there. There's a few kind of recency bias type players on here.
Any BYU guys on there?
0.
Yeah.
0. And that's how I came across it is someone posted on Cougar Board, and I apologize for not shouting you out. I actually didn't link to the post. But yeah, 0. They said that Jim McMahon should have been on the list. I actually think we'll go through our own list of most electric BYU players. Jim McMahon's not on my list of top electric players at BYU. And the reason I say that is because I actually here's how I define it. And I had ChatGPT help me out with this. So defining an electric player is calling someone, the player is explosive, fast, or thrilling to watch. They tend to make game-changing plays or have a unique energy or charisma on the field. And then the term is often applied to skill position players like wide receivers, running backs, or quarterbacks. who create highlight reel moments. And I say that it's not limited to skill position players. I think there's a lot of electric players that are, and I'll name a few, but that's the definition. So with that said, I have my list of top 10. I want to go from 10 to 1.
Okay.
And we'll name our 10s, and then we'll go down all the way to 1. So my first, I'll start with honorable mentions. I actually put Fui Vakapuna as an honorable mention, even though he wasn't like your premier running back in 2006 or whatever. It was Curtis Brown. Fui was a force, and every time Fui touched the ball, obviously you have the Fui chants. Fui was an electric player. I do have Harvey Unga, Parker Kingston, Vi Sikahema, Ty Detmer, and Tyler Algier. Those are my honorable mentions.
Nice.
Just because 10's so hard. I feel like 10's a hard list to come up with. So that said, those are my honorable mentions. Number 10, I put Glenn Kozlowski. And to be completely honest, this is probably the one on the list that I don't know a whole lot about because I was born in 88. Glenn is before my time. But I did watch, like I grew up, we had a VHS of like best moments in BYU sports history, and it was this kind of NFL films type of VHS. I'm sure listeners probably have seen it and know what I'm talking about, but they went through all the best seasons in BYU football history, and Glenn Kozlowski had his own like segment about showing him catching pretty much anything that came his way. So Glenn Kozlowski I had at number 10 just because he was such a big playmaker in a time where BYU was so dominant.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't argue with that. Your most controversial thing you said there is that I think that Ty Detmer was honorable mention. Here's what I will say though, and with my list, and I am fully on board with not doing it this way, but with my list, I just went with people that I saw play.
Fair. That's fair.
And so my honorable mention is where I kind of put the ones that I knew probably should have been on my list but weren't. And so I have Ty Detmer, Steve Young, and Jim McMahon, all people that I heard a ton about, but I was born in 84, and I never saw any of them play with my own eyes at BYU. My number 10, defensive player. I only have 2 defensive players on this list. My all-time favorite BYU player ever, Gennaro Guilford.
Okay.
That is my top 10, my 10th pick. His sophomore year, the last year he was healthy, he was incredible. He had 6 picks that season. 6 is so many. And against big-time receivers, against Utah in 2001, they look like they've got us. They're driving. My friends that are Utah fans I'm watching it with are making fun. And all of a sudden, he gets that, and everything changes. And so, like, he made the list. He was electrifying. Gennaro Guilford at my number 10.
That 2001 season was
magical.
It was magical and depressing at the same time, the way it ended.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Just the number of electric players. Brandon Doman could have probably made this list or an honorable mention. I didn't even put him on here. He was electric in his own way.
Yes.
And, obviously Luke Staley's going to be on our list, but I'm curious where you have him. Number 9, I have Jamal Williams.
Okay.
And, obviously a high production guy, but I put him on here because of his energy. And to your point, like when you're talking about an electric player, you have to kind of be in the moment to experience the electricity.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with your kind of assessment of electric players based on who you've witnessed personally. And Jamal Williams is one of those guys for me. Jamal was there when I was covering BYU for KUTV. And so like we got to experience Jamal kind of behind the scenes too. And like I was I'm on the field shooting him. So I'm like ground level and, whatever energy you experienced in the stands, times that by 10 on the field. Like that was Jamal Williams. And, even today, and it's funny how viral he's kind of gotten in the NFL because we all knew he was capable of that kind of off the field personality at BYU. I think BYU kind of suppressed it a little bit with Jamal, but he still kind of had his own way of being himself. And so just for his charisma alone, even outside of his production, because I think he was a high production guy as well, but even just for his charisma and his personality, I put him at number 9.
So yeah, he's on my list. I have him a little higher, but yeah, love Jamal. One of my things is that a player's special when I have friends that are fans of the other team that are texting me like, who the crap is this guy? Like, and so he had a few of those type of games, but in the bowl game, I believe is the last game of his career, BYU against Wyoming, he had like 200 something yards. And I have friends and family actually live in Wyoming that were texting me like, who is this Williams guy? And so anyway, it was fun.
That was a game that was miserable. You're talking about the Poinsettia Bowl game against Wyoming?
Probably, yeah.
Miserable game. Rainy. I think Jamal did have a great game, but they still only scored like 17 or 20-something points. It was very low scoring and a miserable game to be at and be shooting with an $8,000 camera on my shoulder in the rain with no rain cover. I had a garbage can or garbage sack on my.
It does sound miserable.
Camera.
Okay, my number 9 was Steve Sarkisian.
Okay.
That's the team that actually like totally won my heart as a BYU fan. Previous to that, I was a little kid and would watch games here and there. In that 96 season, I watched every single game and so many big time moments where, and we had a lot of good players, but Steve was the key, insane completion rate, key completions and touchdowns in big moments. Loves me some Steve Sarkisian.
I didn't even have him on my list. I didn't give a lot of credit to quarterbacks, I don't think, in this list.
It's hard for them. I thought of me leaving Dominoff, but he wasn't the electrifying. He was very important to that team.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the word electrifying, but Steve, to me, with his pass to win the game to KO Kalalui against A&M, it was electrifying, and KO made the catch, but Steve was the consistency through that season.
Yeah, and I was a.
You're younger than
2001 was kind of my year. It was kind of year 96.
You were born in what year?
88, so 8 years old at the time. But I've gone back and watched some Steve Sarkisian highlights. I watched the Kansas State game. Like, phenomenal player. I just didn't give a lot of credit to quarterbacks. That said, my number 8 is Steve Young, and probably could be higher. But again, I wasn't there, so a lot of this is from that VHS that I watched of best BYU football moments or whatever. But, I don't think there's a whole lot to say about Steve Young. We all know how capable he was and how electric he was as a player, even if we weren't there personally. So I have Steve Young at 8. And it's fitting that he wore 8 in college and in the pros.
Yeah, love it. No, I love Steve Young. I was a Niners fan for my childhood because of him. My number 8, another one that I think may surprise you, but that I rate really high, Johnny Harline. That he was like an unguardable player. Mm-hmm. And he would do one-handed grabs. And so his most famous one, obviously, against Utah, where he kneels and catches it. But in his, that was an electrifying moment. But in his crazy, oh my gosh, how did he do that plays? It's not even on the list.
That wasn't even the best of the game.
Correct. Every team would put their best guy, including Utah, put their NFL Pro Bowler, Super Bowl winner, Weddle. His only job was to stop Harline, and he couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Harline was awesome. The fact that he didn't get a real shot in the NFL still just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But love me some Harline, and he's my number 8.
I actually thought about putting Pitta on my list, or at least honorable mention. What's wild, and I really hope BYU kind of gets back to this, is they had Daniel Coates on the other side. They had 2, I don't know if Daniel Coates was an All-American, but they had 2 All-American caliber tight ends with John Beck. That offense was crazy high firepower. My 7, speaking of high firepower offenses, Todd Watkins.
Okay.
A little bit of a dark horse here.
Yeah.
Todd was the guy that was capable of catching, he could outrun everybody, right? He didn't matter.
He may be the fastest receiver BYU's ever had.
Maybe Puka, but Todd was just a straight line receiver. I don't think he really ran routes that well. Maybe he did, but from what I remember, Todd was, and Austin Collie that same year, but they were just the deep threats, right? They just go long and I'll throw it to you, very much backyard football. And it kind of mixed in the jerseys, kind of the aura of that era of, brand new jerseys, brand new color scheme. And now we look back on those days and we're like, man, those jerseys were pretty hideous. But that, to me, when I think of that jersey, I think of Todd Watkins and early John Beck and Jason Berry, that. But Todd Watkins is center. And I'm kind of sad and kind of surprised he didn't do as well as he did in the NFL. I think he got drafted or maybe picked up as a free agent, but didn't really go anywhere. But at BYU, he was one of the most electric players I remember watching.
No, yeah. I mean, he's the fast. I really think he's the fastest receiver we've ever had. Here's my funny Todd Watkins thing. His high school team, he was on the same team as Reggie Bush and Alex Smith.
Yeah.
And so, like, what a high school team that has Reggie Bush at running back, Alex Smith at quarterback, and just D1 just speedster at receiver. Yeah, no, I love me some Watkins. I also have a speedster at my number 7, James Dye.
Okay.
That I loved as a kid, the posters, and if you punt, you die, you know, like, and he's the best return man we've ever had. Marion was an All-American return man last year, not even in the same stratosphere as the man James Dye.
No O'Neal Chambers love?
No, I like O'Neal.
Couldn't catch it in the basket. He always had to catch it with his hands above his head.
Yeah. O'Neal was an interesting dude. Big, huge athlete. James Dye was so shifty and so fast and returned punts, returned kicks, electrified. How many other punt returners do you know of that people are making, thousands of people are making posters for? Other fact, his brother, Jermaine Dye, big-time Major League Baseball player. But anyway, that's my number 7, James Dye.
Very nice. And honestly, you could put a couple of punt returners or kick returners on this list. James Dye I actually have at 6.
Okay.
So we're similar there. And that's why I shouted out Isaac Ahema in my honorable mentions. Reno Mahe is another one. And I mentioned Parker Kingston. Like we've got some in BYU's history, they've got some good punt returners. It's crazy how they went such a long period of time. I think it was like 10 years or something. Yeah. Without a punt return or a kick return, and they got, I think Cody Hoffman had one in 2015 or 16 or whatever, but before that they went like 10 years without one.
Electrifying is the word. I don't think anything lights a stadium's energy like a nice punt return or kick return. You can just see it happening. You can just feel the build, and
especially last year against Kansas State.
Oh yeah,
which is why example. Kingston's on my list. All right, so James Dye at 6. Who's your 6?
My 6 is Tyler Algier.
Okay.
Funny enough, I kind of went back and forth on this. My son was the one real huge proponent of Tyler Algier being on this list because was he electrifying? He didn't have that like crazy burner speed, but where he was electrifying is he always got like 5 yards every time, and sometimes a lot more. But that is also electrifying in my mind when it was a 4th and 1 and you know they're selling out for it. It looks like he's going to get stopped and then he breaks for that first. Like, loved it. Tyler Algier, one of the best, if not the best running back. He's in that conversation we've ever had. Love me some Tyler Algier.
Yeah, Algier kind of had that Harvey Unga type of one cut. He's kind of the bigger back, right? He could be a bruiser if he wanted to, but he could also make one cut and go. You know, Fui Vakapuna was another one of those, one cut and go. And then he had the top end speed. He wasn't like a Luke Staley top end speed guy, but he had the top end speed to outrun guys into the end zone. And yeah, I agree. I wouldn't put him, that's why I kind of have him as an honorable mention, not as electric as the guys I have on my list, but still pretty dang impactful and a great playmaker. Number 5 for me was Austin Collie. So again, going back to, and granted, he's stuck around. He went on his mission, came back, played, I think 1 or 2 more years. But he was again a speedster, but he was a great route runner. Yeah, great playmaker,
like unguardable.
Absolutely. And then he only increased his stock in the NFL. I actually think he had a better NFL career than he had a college football career, if that's possible.
His rookie year was magical in the NFL.
Yeah.
I only own one NFL jersey, and it's a Colts Austin Collie jersey.
Yeah, and it's sad that he had to, very much like Steve Young, right? Like Steve Young was plagued by head injuries. It's sad that, Austin Collie was the type of player that put his body out there.
Yeah.
Put his body on this. Luke Staley's another one, but just put his body on the line and paid for it. But the years that we got of Austin Collie in college and in the pros was, as he would say, magical.
It was. Magic happened. Number 5 for me, Jamal Williams. You already had him, so we've talked about him, but just his charisma on and off the field, his interaction with fans, The fact that he was like a freshman at 16 or something absurd. The fact that that's well documented, had an honor code thing where he could have transferred and gone somewhere else, but he just took the year off and stayed loyal to BYU. I respect the heck out of that, but he earned it from on the field. Crazy, electrifying player, and oftentimes was just obviously the best athlete. And loved me some Jamal Williams.
It's hard to be the best athlete when Taysom Hill's also on the field.
Yes.
But some games he was the best athlete out there. Number 4 for me, my only defensive player, I went with Kyle Van Noy. And you probably have Kyle on your list too. I know you said you had 2, but Kyle Van Noy, man, when he had 2 game-winning strip sixes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's got to be most out of any college football player. It's like really hard to do, right? Like it's really hard to take over a game and win a game as a defensive player. Kai Nakua is probably another kind of impact.
I thought hard about Kai.
Yeah, it just came to mind. I honestly forgot about Kai until just now. But we'll leave Kai kind of off the list for now. But Kyle Van Noy, his strip 6 against Ole Miss, man, I remember exactly where I was. Yep. Strip 6 against San Diego State. Like those plays you just don't see very often, and he made it twice.
Yeah.
In addition to everything else he did, every time a offense tried to run a reverse, he was there. Like I was like, man, I really hope Oregon State runs a reverse because he'll be there every freaking time. He was there, and so not only did he have a high IQ, he was a lot smaller than he was in the NFL. I think he bulked up quite a bit in the NFL, but he was shifty because of that. So, you couldn't get around the edge on him. He got around blockers like they were nothing, like they were just standing still. And he just had a knack for getting to the quarterback and getting to whoever had the ball.
So my number 4, I also have Kyle Van Noy.
Heck yeah.
So, I love Kyle. One of the few players that when I was at a game, I was looking forward to being on defense and watching him play. He just looked so much faster than everyone else. He looked like he knew what the play was before it happened. You mentioned the game-winning, fumble recoveries for touchdowns. Those were insane. The other one that stands strong in my mind is when Utah State had Love as their quarterback. They were beating lots of big schools. They beat Utah. The very first play of the game, he picks it off, pick 6, and it's like he was at a different level. Love Kyle Van Noy.
Awesome. I believe our top 3 is probably the same 3 players. That's my guess. So number 3, I have Puka Nacua. For obvious reasons, we know how good Puka was in college.
No matter how you got him the ball, and as well, I look at even against the games that we lost, where our quarterbacks were not looking great. Against Baylor, at Baylor when we lost, he was unguardable. Like they were just throwing it up to him. He would go up and get it, and then he was making fun of the other, doing the too short, they can't guard me and feed me. Like he was unstoppable. Against Arkansas, when they came in and just punked us, they beat us like 60-30. I had my father-in-law with me at the game, who is a big-time BYU hater. I don't know if many of you have family members that you have to live with that have that fault. But even he could not say, man, who is that guy? He's the best player on the field. How did BYU get that guy? And so love Puka. I know him as a person. I've known him since he was in 8th grade. We work out at the same gym together. And so to see his success and how he just crushed it, and looked so good and had big catches and big runs at every level he's played at. He was in my top 3, number 3.
All those Nakuas, man. Samson, Tay, Kai, Puka, like they're just all ball. I wish one of my kids, sorry, this is going to sound bad. I wish one of my kids had Nakua genes of some sort. Just give them a little bit, man. Like I love my 2 kids. They my oldest he's a very smart player. He plays soccer, a very high IQ guy, not incredibly coordinated, not incredibly athletic. Man, I just want like a little bit of Puka's genes. All right, so number 2 for me was Puka 3 for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 2 for me, Taysom. For again obvious reasons, Taysom to me he could have played as he does in the NFL. He could have played pretty much any position at BYU. He had a rocket for an arm. He had Jamal Williams in the backfield with him. Like, that offense was for all intents and purposes, a 2-man offense.
Yeah.
And they made that offense turn, just those two guys. And Taysom was a massive part of that. I remember, even I think before any of the Texas runs for touchdowns, he had one against Hawaii. And the reason I remember it so much is because I worked at BYU TV and we edited the crap out of this highlight. It was his like 60-yard touchdown run right up the middle. And I remember it because Dave McCann had the worst call on this play. And I don't know if it's kind of like Dave McCann lore, but the play call was like Taysom runs up the middle and Dave McCann's like, there he goes. And then he waits like 5 or 6 seconds saying nothing. And like, they say as a play-by-play guy, you should let the play breathe or whatever. He let it breathe so long until Taysom runs into the end zone and then he just yells touchdown. And everyone's like, Dave, you got to call the play.
Yeah,
dude.
that's
like,
funny.
It's a big play. Like, let's call it. It's, he's making things happen. But, obviously the two runs against Texas, that Texas game at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, that was electric in and of itself. You had the thunderstorm before and the big rain, the big downpour. Man, Taysom had such a good game that game. And then obviously they go to Austin and lay it on him. And that hurdle will forever live in BYU history as one of the best individual plays, individual moments by a BYU football player.
Oh yeah, I was in Austin and I remember walking in and everyone felt like the year before was a fluke. All the Texas fans for sure did, and that we were going to get what was coming for them. That they weren't ready the year before. They were this year, and even a lot of BYU fans were worried. Hey, like this might be different. And then he just took over again. He's jumping over people, and just the depression in the crowd was like you could feel it. Love Taysom. My number 2 though was Luke Staley. So
okay. we flipped.
Yeah, so I had Luke. Similarly, he had like with Vakapuna, he also had the Luke, and when he touched it, it's like he was sent out of a rocket.
Yeah,
and just calves the size of tree trunks. And as a kid, so in 2001, I was in high school, right in the heart of BYU and Utah country, and right in the middle of the two. And so just lived and died with every BYU game, every BYU Utah game. And he just came up big. When he was healthy, he was the most electrifying player in every game he played in.
Yeah. So Taysom's your number 1. Luke is my number 1. And again, 2001 was my kind of introduction. That was my spark year. That's when I got into BYU football pretty much full time. I watched every game that year. So that was my team, and Luke was just phenomenal to watch. So very, very different from what BYU is used to having, which is the Harvey Younga, Tyler Algier, one cut kind of big bruiser guy. Even like Curtis Brown, Jamal Williams. Those guys did not run like Luke, and it's not because they weren't capable. Luke's running style was just wildly different. Luke could go up the middle, make a cut, make a guy miss or whatever, and outrun everyone in the end zone. Luke's sweet spot was the sidelines.
For sure.
Right? Like, they ran the option play. Like, I think that's why Brandon Doman was a big part of this. I think Brandon was the perfect quarterback for Luke. But that was the game plan. Let's get Luke to the sideline where he's just going to tiptoe and outrun everyone into the end zone down the sideline. I don't really remember much of him running right down the middle of the field.
Yeah. No, but if he saw a gap, and usually it was around the edge, he was just gone.
Yeah. And I really, once he turned a corner, it was like, that's a touchdown.
We were doing like option pitches to him on 4th and 10s, and he would pick it up,
Yeah.
And so both him, so I have Taysom as my number 1. Those, I mean, how do you decide between those two?
Taysom ran very much like Luke, by the way. I think if you were to look at someone who had the same kind of running style as Luke, it was Taysom.
He was a little bit more comfortable putting his shoulder down, but absolutely they both had like very comparable running styles, huge humans and just fast.
Yeah.
And where both of them were almost like superheroes on the field. Like I'm trying to find words, but it didn't matter who we played. They were a standout best athlete on the field. And we could have played anybody. And if they haven't their best game, we're going to win. It was the sad thing. I mean, they both had incredible BYU careers, but if injuries held them back from them just being like talked about nationally as the best football players ever, like both of those guys, if they didn't have some key injuries, would have just shredded the record books and had seasons that would have got BYU huge accolades. But still, love those guys. And what they did give us was a ton. And they both. I'm glad they were both on the top of our list.
Yeah, and it's kind of a theme in this list. Like if guys avoid injuries, Austin Colley's another one. They have massive NFL careers as well. Like Luke would have had a massive NFL career had his legs held up. But this is, that's our list. And I think if anyone listening, if you have if you noticed anyone we missed, please let us know in the comments of this video, or if you are listening on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, please tag us on Twitter or X. I'm at JakeKUTV. Tosh, what are you?
On X, I'm Tosh Mackintosh, or Tosh and Mac, but you can search Tosh Mackintosh. There's not too many of us.
At Tosh and Mac, or just search for Tosh Mackintosh. Let us know if we missed anybody. But that's going to do it for us today on the Loyal Cougars Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please subscribe. Hit the bell on the video if you're watching on YouTube, so you can get notified when we upload future videos. But for now, that'll do it for us on the Loyal Cougars Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Edmonds, alongside Tosh Mackintosh. We'll see you next week.